Okay, more than anything, why did Ronda Rousey think she could act? Ronda Rousey just recently came out and was like, I didn't like that they wanted me to fight with Alexa Bliss because it wasn't believable. But Ronda, you acted. You at one point were trying to make your career playing pretend, and you couldn't even understand that like nobody's gonna think differently about you with Alexa Bliss versus you in professional wrestling. Like being upset of fighting the person who's the highest merch seller is just preposterous because it's like that's what this business is built on. Like WWE is built on charisma, popularity, athleticism too, but like when you have those two things, you can go pretty far. Not to say Alexa Bliss isn't athletic either. It's not like that in any case. But the fact that Rhonda got upset about that, like couldn't understand or believe that, and then went in to do acting as well. Like I remember her playing Sonya Blade in that Mortal Kombat game terribly, and she has to fight like people from a different dimension. Okay, like people that make no freaking sense, and you want to make that believable. Like you want to make it believable that a lady with two guns is gonna be able to fight like cyborgs, bee people, an alien, and you can't believe that you could fight Alexa Bliss. And look, I get Ronda's acting career didn't go anywhere. I get it. But my problem is like she did try to do it, but she doesn't have enough imagination that she's openly admitting to while being mean to somebody. And it just comes off as like being upset that like things didn't work out the way you wanted. Like I don't want to discount like her actual sporting career. I don't want to discount her. I don't want to discount her actual sporting career, which is very impressive in a lot of aspects. And I get like she was typecast as tough as nails, badass woman, but when you're taking away that spot from people and you don't even have the enough imagination to like make something make sense in your mind and be believable and be like a positive thing when it clearly is, when it's like this isn't sports, this is fiction, and then you want to be an actor. Okay, WrestleMania is going to Saudi Arabia. As always, if this was just between a Saudi company and WWE, feel very differently about that. The propaganda for the Saudi government, obviously, it's only focused on tourism. Not great. Saudi Arabia, they've changed their image. They've changed some of their culture. I think we can argue for sure. But when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to their human rights violations, it is what it is. And that super sucks. Not a fan of, propaganda, especially from a monarchy. And that super sucks. And now that we're getting main pay per views for Saudi Arabia with Royal Rumble happening in January and WrestleMania, I think it's fair to say we do have an issue when it comes to specifically how these shows are out of step in like essentially the continuity of the product. Like obviously WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, special stuff's gonna happen. That's kind of the thing about those shows. It's like, oh yeah, this person who you haven't thought about in a while is gonna appear. The problem is just like these shows always feel like one step away from like what's actually mattering and what's actually happening. Like I think about like Gunther versus Cody when they're both champs. I think the closest we've gotten to something that mattered was probably Punk and Cena, but even then, nothing happened during that entire thing except for the ref got his broken ribs. And that's kind of the thing with these shows is like everything feels pretty sustained, like not that much movement within the plot, within the character motivations, within anything that's actually connected to the story happens. And so now we're getting like main shows that are like, no matter what, they got to drive the story forward. They have to. Royal Rumble, you have to make a main event for WrestleMania. WrestleMania, it's the big climax of the entire year. But these shows have been built on like these one big show events. Like, oh my God, we're getting Cody versus Brock Lesnar for one more time. It's all these massive, massive, massive matches without any real build, any real story, and any real need to be there other than you have these two giant stars that you can put on the poster and be like, this is what's going on in these shows. And for me, that's just kind of lame. So, maybe they're going to actually make them worthwhile and interesting. I think people get too mad about the crowd. I think the crowd's actually been okay in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, government propaganda, not great. Plot not mattering for these shows, not great. Storytelling being like, what if you saw this crazy crossover? It's whatever, man. We'll see how it goes. Average people, normies, wanting to discuss Charlie Kirk's shooting this week has been the weirdest part. Often with myself in my normal life, I try to hide my internet power level, and maybe I'll make a comment or two on like my live stream or something, but I don't really talk about like the dark reaches of the internet. It's just not really what I prefer discussing. But this was definitely like the first time that I've seen like very average people, very normal people in my own life and in general trying to discuss weird internet stuff that I don't think they're aware of. Like conceptually, I think they can understand Charlie Kirk, radical, intense, conservative internet debate bro. Easy. But the details of his assailant, besides the fact that he's like a right winger as well, they don't understand what groypers are. It is a level of the internet they don't even conceptualize or even thought could happen. Like recently, New York Times did like a piece on Nick Fuentes. And I recently saw a clip of Luis Theroux interviewing him. I don't know when that happened though, but like he has been in discussion with regular rich people, but the 4chan language speak, the intricacies of like their worldview, I think is completely foreign. Like Charlie Kirk being killed because he's not right wing enough is a completely foreign concept to a lot of people. Like they don't even understand how far right that could exist. And you know what? In all intents and purposes, that's probably what happened here. And for me, when, people have tried to discuss it with me, it's like, it's been weird because it's like, I don't know what your internet level is. Do you think you can understand even what I'm mentioning, what I'm talking about? Do you even want to have that discussion? Like, it's not fun stuff. Maybe it's important to know nowadays. I don't know. It's like, do you want to know about the like dredges of the internet, the worst of the worst of the worst? For most of these people that I've interacted with, I'm gonna be like, probably not. I don't know. What a weird week. Um, crazy, crazy right wing violence. I keep trying to play 2KXO like it's a normal fighter. The League of Legends Tag Fighter came out 2KXO as a beta. And the unique thing of the game is that there is no motion inputs. It looks like a normal tag fighter. It looks like a regular fighter. But there's no quarter circles, there's no dragon punch input, there's nothing like that. It's just only buttons. And I want to be clear, I've only been in fighting games for like the last few years. I mostly play Tekken, but just booting up this game, obviously I'm still playing with controls, is interesting that I'm already trying to like do like a quarter circle motion and that kind of thing kind of naturally when those are just not part of the game. It's interesting with Vi at least of having like electric mechanic without motion inputs. But it is interesting for me of just like getting used to the new language, even though it's kind of the same thing as like other fighters. Overall, I think it's kind of cool. I think the two characters I'm still interested in most are Braum and Vi. They are both my kind of stylings. I think the art for all the characters has been cool so far. I think it plays like really well and like, you put on some low settings and like any computer can pretty much play it. But overall, it's been interesting of just like, oh, this language has just been already taught to me, and I'm kind of just trying to gravitate towards that, but it's just not. It's not. It's a completely different dialect. That disinterested ESPN WrestlePalooza WWE spot, that I think is still very indicative of the ESPN WWE deal. This is the thing about Triple H specifically as a booker that I find difficult because you can see this kind of thing in NXT. You can see this with its current WWE product, where the sports of the sports entertainment is exemplified. And there's positives about that. Don't get me wrong. The issue is the sports aspect is not necessarily in the way that you think it would be. Now, you can see certain things like tournaments actually mattering, where wins and losses in NXT back in the day, in current WWE, do affect things. It's never just simply 50-50 booking necessarily. But then it becomes solely about becoming champion and being the champion. And I think there should always be a championship picture with any wrestling company. I think somebody needs to be climbing for that belt or defending that belt. But the issue then becomes that's all that's happening is the sports storyline, the championship storyline, and that's all we can focus on. And everything else doesn't necessarily have character at all. Like Brock, John Cena, there's not much character in that other than like, wow, they're gonna do that again. Even stuff that should have like a little bit more character, like I think AJ Lee, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Becky, that has the most like stuff going on, in the sense of like, oh, storylines moving. There's a belt that's still involved, but like storylines moving. But again, it's about a belt. It's about a championship ultimately. It's the Intercontinental, maybe the World Championship to a degree too, but it's about those two belts. And so they go into like this sports field, where everything's focused on this. And the problem is they're going to be rejected from the sports people because they don't care about this shit. Because if they want a real storyline, like something that they can grab onto in sports, they can get that in real stories. And that's kind of the problem right now, where it's like, I get making it a sports centric thing. I think that's worked in other companies. I think New Japan is a very clear showing of like, if you keep it like real sports and treat it like a real sport, there's things you can do that's very unique about that. But there's just not enough of sports centric storylines part of the WWE's DNA to make that work. And now when you're converging with real sports people who legitimately cover actual sports, they're going to seem disinterested. They're not going to seem like really into it. And of course, there's like people who actually work in sports. There's Pat McAfee, John Chesator, who work with WWE, work with real sports. I think Joe especially does fine, but that's not everybody in the sports world. They see wrestling as kind of a joke. So yeah, I think it's a weird bad time in wrestling for WWE. I hope they get their shit together. Okay, but who's even watching Jimmy Kimmel? Like, I think a Bear Report will like pop off at some points. Usually with some guests, I'll get like some Colbert stuff. But outside of the mean tweets segment from Jimmy Kimmel, I have not seen a Jimmy Kimmel segment. I don't even know how long. And hey, it's been a long time since I watched nighttime talk shows. But Jimmy, again, of the three main ones ever, I don't think about him. Jimmy Fallon, I think, is the most milquetoast man of all time, and that, like, I understand the appeal of him in that capacity. You're getting the most mainstream thing ever. Colbert is willing to do some political commentary. He's able to talk about like particular issues, and also like Colbert also had a previous career of being really, really funny and in a lot of good projects, like a lot of good voice acting and the Colbert Report. I think Colbert has made a name for himself, and I'll give him a shot once in a while. But Jimmy Kimmel is between both those things. I don't feel any biting commentary from Jimmy ever. And I guess it might be that I'm outside of the Bachelor system. I'm outside of the Disney system in a lot of ways, where it's like I don't really care about a lot of those projects. I don't know. It's just weird. It's like Jimmy Kimmel isn't entertaining to me in the slightest, and so like it's really disturbing to be like, oh, this guy is gonna, I don't know, deserve a cancellation. I don't know where it's weird to contemplate the end of like the talk show era in TV and just besides the political ramifications of everything. Like it's been a staple of just like milk toast boring content for a very long time. Some of it has been pretty good throughout the years. I think Letterman had some good stuff. I think Conan O'Brien still can do like a good interview, but people getting upset over some just like chill boomer humor. It's pretty wild, dude. It's pretty lame. All Out looks better than WrestlePalooza. Like when you take out the backstories, okay, all the Saudi Arabia, all the gobbledygook with the WWE, and you take AEW just seeming more like a positive place. Like when you take that out, when you think of storylines and match setups that I see, I'm more inclined to AEW stuff this time. Not to say there's not both good matches on both cards, but even with AEW having like more matches, the percentage for things that I'm interested in as a viewer is still higher. Because I don't even know how long WrestlePalooza is going to be. It's only shown 5 matches, I think, so far. So there's probably going to be like 1 or 2, maybe 3 from SmackDown. But they've kind of set the bar of like, this is what the stuff that really matters is. I think a big part of this is honestly just the story of both because WrestlePalooza, frankly, besides the CM Punk Becky Lynch stuff, which I do think was set up, and John and Brock, obviously. Everything else just feels like, oh, we're just gonna do this, okay? Cool? Yeah, we're just gonna do this, guys. When I think of like, I don't know, Cody versus Drew McIntyre, they've been having some foreshadowings like here and there, but like actually doing it, um, Cody versus Drew is like actually a big deal. And there's just not been like a big build up story wise of recent time. It's been in the shadows like months ago, but now that we're actually here, it's like where's the story? Where's the drama? You know, the old guard who's kind of looks at the young pupil to a degree, but now the young pupil's champion. That stuff, along with how bitter Drew is as a character, like all that stuff, like, well, where is the story? I mean, the problem with John and Brock, frankly, is that they're both part timers. So it's just like with their story, it's just like, oh my God, Brock Lesnar is back. Oh my God, John Cena is back. And that's it. Like, there's nothing else like interesting to what they're building towards. It's just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening one more time. The one I'll give credit to, though, Punk, Seth, Becky, AJ, that shit's set up real good. That's like undeniable that they've laid the groundwork, they executed it, it works. I don't know how good the match is. I'm not a Becky Lynch fan, and AJ Lee has been out of the business for a long time. We'll see, you know. So then there's the tag match between the Usos and um, Bronson and Braun. You know, the Bronze. Jay, you know, I like Jay. He's fine. I like Braun. I think he's hilarious. I like Bronson. I think he's also hilarious. So, you know, Jimmy's fine. But then I look at the AEW match card and I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff on here. But also it's like a lot of stuff I want to see. Like Hangman versus Kyle Fletcher. We know how that's gonna go. But man, it's gonna be a good match, okay? I think storyline wise, I think MJF versus Mark Briscoe has been the best build towards a match on this card for me. I think just like Mark's character work, I think MJF's character work, and building towards like this like real rivalry it's been good. Rio versus Mercedes, I'm very excited for. I'm much more of like a Rio fan than I am of Mercedes personally. But like seeing both of them, I just expect a lot from that match. I really do, especially after the Tony Storm Mercedes Monet match they had at All In. I expect a really good match between these two who can work very well. You know, I think Edge and Christian FTR, I think that stuff has been really good, honestly. I think Stokely Hathaway's entire gimmick this entire time has really made it actually like a really great sweet spot when it comes to stories. I mean, honestly, overall, all of FTR's like heel work this time has been really good. Just Stokely has just pushed them like way past where they were for me. I do think Edge and Christian's like vibe right now, that's been good. I think like one heel, one babyface, like tag team it against like 2 heels. That's cool. I think that's been working pretty well between all these guys. Oh yeah, and then the return of Eddie Kingston. I freaking love Eddie Kingston. That's all to say, like, it's weird that WrestlePalooza is really based on like two particular matches and two big returns. And AW's pay per view, for the most part, has been focused on like building towards a story with like one return.
No, it's just definitely the Empire of Man. The rest of the factions are, I guess, you can consider evil in 40K, but only one group is putting all their worth into a dictator and war and bloodshed against anybody who's outside of them. Like the orcs are definitely evil, but they're just like barbarians at most. I think the Tyranids are just like what, a hive mind? Aren't like the elves like several different factions, and like some of them follow the chaos gods and some don't, some shit like that. Don't quote me on that. But the chapter I just read was about Logan not being able to give a man prayer because, no gods except for God Emperor. At least no gods right now. Like the Empire Man is obviously a fascistic state. Like it's just obvious. Like, and every other group is not that. It's evil, except maybe the Tau, I guess. But like they're not fascists.
I think Warhammer distinctually doesn't make a difference between those two ideologies. Now, obviously, in the real world, there is a distinction, but we're still getting into the nuances of things. But the difference between a religious dictatorship and fascism is like pretty thin, especially in the context of Warhammer, where there is still an idol to be worshipped that is technically a human, similar to how Kim Il is worshipped in North Korea, now to a degree, Stalin back in the day. Ultimately, the difference between the God Emperor and these men is he has real powers. He has like a real vision. And, the difference, instead of him bastardizing the ideology, like I would say Stalin does, or others who, walk the way of like Marxian shit, it's actually his subordinates that bastardize his ideology. But again, his ideology is like strongman bullshit. So it's like, I don't know, making like militant atheism into a religious dogma, which is kind of similar to like honestly what happens with fascism is the through line between like belief in the state and religion is kind of thin at that point. If tankies argue like these people aren't like fascists in any way of like the real people I meant, whatever, man. Now I understand. But the other two, come on, man. Okay, 2XKO is gonna definitely lean younger. That's one of those things, like, I kind of forgot about free to play games, is it brings every child to it. I've heard about the problems with Marvel Rivals of recent times, of something free to play that's kind of hit big. And not to say like fighting game spaces aren't immature with necessarily like how they act. There's a lot of saltiness that goes around, to a degree. It's not that bad. But usually when someone's pissy, I find they're able to convey why they're pissy about something. Whereas in ranked, there's been a few times with 2XKO where like nothing that they said actually happened, and it's just like they're mauling about stuff. I think that just ultimately comes from just like, oh, these are kids playing this game. Like, how many children are playing this game from like, I don't know, 10 to 17? Because I really do think that's going to be a huge boon to see how long this game's going to last. Because if it's able to capture a young audience, it's just gonna stay for a really, really, really long time. It's an interesting game. Yasuo sucks. I think everybody knows that. I fought a couple like Juggernaut Vi's. I find the Juggernaut fights just not as enjoyable. I prefer fighting two characters, but you know what? I get it. It is what it is. But the character designs are real good. It'll be really interesting to see the lasting impact this game's gonna have. I mean, if this hits too, like that'll be interesting to see like a free to play model actually succeed in the fighting game space, which just hasn't happened yet. Street Fighter on pay per view? What? If you didn't see, Street Fighter Capcom Cup Finals are now going to be a pay per view event around probably like 30 to $25. And look, I'm aware of pay per views. I watch myself some wrestling, so I'm aware of paying money for a pay per view. I get it. I get in the sense of comparing Street Fighter to actual combat sports, which are also, until recently with the UFC, pretty much all pay per view based. At the very least, like special events based. It's kind of inevitable with the format. And like what I understand of how this game is hit in the Japanese culture, it's pretty profound. I get that. But the issue with pay per view overall is it's a very insular kind of format. Instead of bringing more people to the table, you are taking that away from people. The only argument that I can see this being a good idea is for them to then use this information of how good the pay per view does and then use that to make a deal with a network. Like if they're like, look, we got this many buys and now, hey, Netflix, give us money or ESPN or whatever. That that I understand. But overall, I just don't think this is a good idea for esports. I don't think again it necessarily needs to be free. I saw Mortal Kombat was on like HBO Max. It was on other stuff too, but like there's a place for esports to be on a streaming platform. But gatekeeping that to only a pay-per-view purchase, I don't think it's there yet. We're just not there culturally. At least here in the States, at least here in the rest of the world, but maybe in Japan, that's the case. That little squirrel devil in 2XKO, I think that's gonna be the one, man. And when I play fighting games, I do like being a troll. I really do. I really like being a troll. That's why I play Azucena in Tekken. And the thing like Azucena is like both of them come off as like overly positive, but it's not like fake to the character. Like I think of like Lucky Chloe in Tekken is another example of a happy-go-lucky character in some aspects, but really just like a total meanie. But Timu Azucena, there's like a little bit of meanness, but it's not really there. It's more like, yeah, I did that, bro. Crazy. And for me, I think that's why I like Terry too. I gravitate towards like very optimistic, very positive characters, and him being a complete troll and still doing that, I'm really excited for. The trailer they did too. It was very cute. It was very adorable. It was a positive time. Yeah, the only thing that's not making me dive super deep is like I'm just waiting for the console release to really zone in and see how that game goes. Okay, the $30 subscription fee is way over the line. In the gaming sphere, Xbox Game Pass just became 30 bucks. ESPN is $30 a month for their subscription service. I get it to a degree. They're more of a niche than say like Netflix or HBO Max. They're serving a certain clientele and they are in their eyes a premium product, okay? I get it. But I think a jump to $30 is a very hard sell to consumers. This is the threshold, I think like what we're seeing with both of these things that kind of just happened, both of these are being rejected, okay? I do not see like either of these being necessarily successful in the ways that these companies want them to be. And that's just the fact is there are alternatives to what ESPN is giving and there are alternatives to what Xbox is giving. Ultimately, every network now, Netflix to Peacock, other than like I don't know, Shutter and Criterion Channel, have sports. And there's a multitude of different sports. There's everything from like racing, hockey, soccer, football. All of it's there in different categories. And with Game Pass, I'm sorry, you got PlayStation. You also just have people who are buying games on sale instead of paying 30 bucks a month. I think this is going to be detrimental to both brands. I think going forward, this is too much to ask. This is way too much to ask, and they're going to suffer for it. That's my opinion. We'll see what happens.